I feel like every day in my classroom, I have like a Bane speech or something. Like I'll stop everything. I'm like, all right, you guys, like, like,
This is the
and I'll
moment.
talk for like 20 minutes. And I sometimes I have kids that are like timing me and they're like, "Hey, Mr. A, you've been talking for an hour." I'm like, "Okay, you guys get it? Okay, cool. Let's, all right, math time."
Okay, so thank you again, everyone. This is the Scoped Exposure podcast coming at you. I'm super excited to be chatting with a homie from just the neighboring province, Andres from the band Failed States, and a little local celebrity as well. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Hey, thanks a lot, Spencer. It's like an absolute pleasure to be on here. I'm a big fan.
Oh, I'm a big fan of you, and I'm really excited to be finally doing this. Before you jump into Food Network stardom, we'll be chatting about that soon. But for the folks at home who might not know who you are, what you do in the punk and hardcore space, can you just give me a proper introduction? Where you're based and what bands you're a part of?
Okay, absolutely. Well, my name's Andres Araneda, and I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm in a couple bands, most notably Failed States. We're a hardcore band. I'm also in another band called Nerve Endings, which has some hardcore inclinations, I'd say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime I play guitar, it kind of tends to be hardcore. So, yeah. I also played in a band last year just for fun called Dark Slide, and we just cover Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 and 3 songs.
How
And
have
so
I
that,
not known this until this moment?
I don't know. We only played like 2 shows, and it's supposed to be just a fun band. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would definitely do it again.
That's hilarious considering Nathan from Stepping Stone is like an adamant Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4. And I was like, he's like, you ask anyone
4.
in Regina. Yeah. I was like, no way 4. Like, I've heard 2 and 3. I'm a firm believer in 3. But
Yeah.
he's like, ask anyone in Regina and it's 4. And I'm like, well, clearly that's
What?
not the case.
All right, Nathan. I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah. Just for the record, I'll say 3 because it had a sick soundtrack.
Straight
They
up.
all do,
Yeah.
but it had some stuff on there.
Oh, yeah. Like, I think out of all of those, that's the one that I sourced out to find the curated playlist on Spotify and have that downloaded all the time. Well, I'm super excited to be doing this podcast with you. I think it's been a long time coming. Before we get into it, we got to do our scoped exposure bev check.
Ooh.
So I'm coming off of a past podcast just before jumping on with you. So I'm still going to be drinking this Costin Press. It's like a rhubarb sparkling water. It's kind of like my summer go-to. And now that there's snow on the ground in Calgary, I'm trying to, have a little bit of summer love still. But once I'm done that, I'll probably crack an Aha.
Oh,
It's
classic.
my favorite sparkling water. I'm trying to educate all the people that think bubbly is the best, and I'm like, bubbly is
It's not.
it's a it's an uncultured man's sparkling water. But what do you got on your end of
Oh,
things?
shots fired. I'm definitely drinking an iced vanilla latte.
Okay.
Okay, it originally came in this, but I had to put in my comeback kid mug, so I'm kind of breaking the rules. It's a cold drink. It doesn't matter. Break the rules.
Yeah.
Uh, Oat milk, obviously, for
Mhm.
me, and some sugar-free vanilla syrup.
Sounds great.
It's my
Do you have
go-to.
a favorite oat milk by chance?
Oh, that's a uh, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is
Okay.
that a
Yeah.
brand? Is
Yeah.
that a brand? Okay, that might be the one I gravitate towards because I just like the packaging. So that's it. I'm really
I gotcha.
superficial on my oat milks right now.
Yeah. I'm an Earth's Own. I think we get the
Cool.
unsweetened vanilla. It's I think it's I haven't wanted to drink regular milk since having that, so that's really good.
Yeah.
I recommend that. But obviously, we're not here just to only
Well,
talk about
definitely try it.
definitely. Obviously, we're not here to only talk about beverages and things like that, even though that's a big passion of mine. Um, Andres is into hardcore. Has a lot of stuff on the outside of that that I definitely want to hit on. And you were on the Food Network, which we'll definitely get into as well. But Andres, I know that you're pretty familiar with the way that we do these kind of podcasts is just getting context on how people got into hardcore. So tell me about or kind of those first formative albums or moments for you that kind of put you on this path.
Oh man. Okay. Uh all right, I'm gonna start from the beginning. I actually wrote some of this down,
Oh,
and if I'm
came
talking too
prepared.
much, stop me. Yeah. I'd say like the first time I have to say I started with punk for sure. Maybe probably pop punk, like a lot of people like my age.
Yeah.
I was watching Biodome, if you know, Polly Shore,
Okay.
and it had a song called A Directional. And I just remember being a kid and I was like, what is this? This is like, what is this? The vocals were, I had never heard anything like it. So to me, after that, I kind of seeked out things like that, except this was in the late 90s. So it was kind of, you didn't have YouTube.
Yeah.
You barely had Napster. So, and I really didn't even know what to look for. So,
Sure.
it took me a while. I found Blink and Gob because I'm from Canada, and they like I listen to Gob a lot, and they had some songs that were actually sort of hardcorey, and I always liked those songs. I was like, these songs are sick. I had no idea. Like there were some breakdowns, and I just had no idea what that was.
Right.
Eventually, I got into new metal. Okay, um, Linkin Park for sure. One step closer. um, just hearing the vocals and the anger, I was like just blown away by that. And after that, I kind of just seek that stuff out. It was really popular in the early 2000s, and much music. So that was kind of I didn't have older brothers or sisters. I had some friends that were they definitely they made fun of me for listening to Linkin Park and new metal. So I kind of kept it on the down low. Except that I listened to System of a Down and all these things. I was obsessed with those bands for like a full year. Limp Bizkit. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Slipknot, and then it's funny because I listened to Slipknot recently, and I was like, this is hardcore, like for sure. I liked hardcore before I even liked it or even knew what it was.
Yeah.
I think afterwards, my friends were like, you need to listen to punk. So I got into punk and started listening to NoFX and Anti Flag. And I liked the rough sound. I liked that it didn't sound good. It sounded terrible. And I liked that. I was like, this is super punk. And really it's like, no, it's just bad production. And but that's what it made it. For me, I was like, that's what it's all about. This isn't even good. But it's great. And
Yeah.
I went to my first punk show in 2002, and it was face to face, Monine, and I dislocated my knee in the mosh pit,
Whoa.
and that kind of started a thing. So I've always been afraid of mosh pits ever since. So mad respect for all the crowd killers. I just can't do that. I'm like really scared of hurting myself, and it's happened about 15 times because I go in the pit sometimes. So
Oh.
yeah. So back to hardcore, I'd say one of the first true exposures that I had to it in person, in the flesh, was at an AFI show because their opener was Poison the Well,
Oh,
and
gotcha.
this was like a massive show, like 1,000 people were there, and Poison the Well, I liked them. I thought they were sick, and I looked back and there was like a pit that just manifested, and these guys were wearing like baggy clothes at the time, and uh like bandanas over their faces, and they're doing like they're picking up change, they're doing all the moves, and I had no idea what that was, and I was shocked, but I was like, "That's so cool!" Like, but I was also low key terrified,
Right.
and, and I think that was like my first exposure. I started getting into like a lot heavier punk music. Like Death by Stereo was probably one of my first like hardcore punk bands that I really got into. They had that energy. Still hanging on to the whole punk thing though. You know, Alexa on Fire got really popular. Saw them play their first show in Regina, and it was just a different sound for me. And I noticed some of the shirts they were wearing, like Dallas Green was wearing a Bane shirt, and I was like, "Oh, what's that?"
Right.
uh, like things like that. Even my friends, they started getting into bands like Raised Fist and like Snapcase, Figure Four, Comeback Kid, and they were like, "Dude, you need to check this out." And I liked it, but I didn't get it. I wasn't really like understanding it. And then yeah, I got into like Agnostic Front. They came to Regina, and they played
Really?
this show. Yeah, it was sick. It was
Crazy.
so cool.
Wow.
And I to me, I was like, that is the most punk band out there. I was listening to Victim in Pain. I was like, this is such a punk album. Like to me, the concept of hardcore just it just flew over my head. I just didn't know what it was. But there at that show, I saw it. It was the hardcore kids versus the punks, and it was
Right.
like a brawl. There was like an actual brawl,
Yeah.
and like one of our local bands opened One Last Victim, and they were like, "You guys need to," they're just trying to like, I don't know, like keep the peace, I guess.
Right.
Like, "Hey, guys, like we're all into the same thing. Like, don't fight." And I kind of liked that. I was like, "That's cool," because these bands are hard, yet this message I had never heard before. I
Sure.
was like, I like how they're talking. And after that, I think it just opened the floodgate. I saw Comeback Kid. They were like coming through all the time. There was a month I saw Comeback Kid 3 times, and I was like, okay, all right, I get it now. And like we had a band in Regina called Far From Ruin, and I think they really sparked my love for hardcore. And after that, I've literally have never looked back. It's
Yeah.
no matter what I'm listening to, I can be listening to hip hop and stuff, and even like pop music, and then I'll be like, nah, like hardcore. That's my love. So
Yeah, there's a bunch of things for me to unpack there. I think the biggest being, well, just on the fact that your very first show, they had such a call it traumatic mosh injury, and that kind of like, there's always this thing where it's like you see all the violence and all the people jumping off of monitors and all that, and there's such this like almost like this fear, but like that's what gravitates you towards it because it is this uncontrolled chaos and like anything can happen at any moment. And then you have to be on your toes all the time.
you do,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but no, that is really cool, and I want to echo what you said just as far as like okay, like I've gone to metal shows and I've see people do this, but like hardcore was like oh like there's like purposeful why behind the music in between the
Yeah.
songs. Like people would be sharing stuff, and like you just like hear stuff, and you're like, yeah, like we do need to act this way as a whatever the message is. Like you can
Mhm.
you know take things from things, and I've heard it on other hardcore documentaries where it's like hardcore almost taught like people would say like hardcore taught me more than I ever did about the world than I did in school at times. Just learning about either political things or just being self-reflective on subjects. There's a multitude of things, but like you said, like the there's just this richness on the vocal and lyrical side that really I think galvanizes and keeps people for a long time.
Oh, for sure. It resonates with me all the time. And my family's really political. They came from Chile. Uh, they fled a dictatorship, and like they were in true danger. So I basically grew up learning about politics, hearing about all sorts of things like the police, for example, and like being a child and being exposed to like pretty like heavy topics where eventually they started to truly align with a lot of the things around my life, including hardcore. I was like, okay, this is definitely my thing. Like, this is
Mm.
going with everything that I grew up with,
Yeah.
and it's got purpose. It's not just, like I think I was getting tired of the punk thing because I would see just like it had that, but it was also kind of mindless sometimes and
Yeah.
just to offend people just to offend them. And to me it's like, no, like we should have a message. And when I started, like the first time I saw Bane, for example, I was like emotional. I was drawn back. Like I couldn't believe the emotion that this band was just kind of like bringing out of me. And
Hmm.
I remember seeing like Die Young from Texas like early on, and they, to this day, whoever was at that show, is a super tiny venue in Regina, just a little hall. Everyone still talks about it because it really had a deep impact on basically the scene at that time. And
Yeah.
I think that's important. That's hardcore is fun, but I think one of my favorite parts about it is that you know we'll take the time to say something, and has a deep message that resonates with people.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a huge, huge, why behind why I'm doing Scoped is like I would watch live sets of bands, specifically like Sunny is forever going to be the biggest inspiration for me. But like I love the fact that it was like capture this really like intense song. People are flipping around and doing these crazy moves, and then like he was recording that 3 minutes of the vocalist talking about either something in their lives or something going on in the world, and it was that time stamped thing. And then I would watch other sets of bands, and they would either just fade into the next song, and they wouldn't record those bits or at least show them. So, I and in the early days, I was like, maybe I won't record this song, and then something crazy happens, or I miss a band, and then I miss something. So I it's kind of like cemented for me, like just have the cameras rolling, and try and capture those moments because they really matter to either the band, people that miss the show, or this, that, or the other. So
Oh, absolutely. And it's those moments that make a show like really stand out,
hmm
you know?
yeah.
Like some of the best shows I've ever gone to, I barely remember what even happened music wise. It's more like, yeah, that was a powerful show. Like it was
Sure.
fun, but it was also like powerful. And that's cool.
Yeah.
Like I love seeing people that don't know anything about hardcore and they'll come to a show. My mom's gone to like almost all my shows, and she loves it. She's like, I get it. And she's like, I can tell when a band's like good or bad, or or even like what kind of sound they've got. I'm like, wow. But really, she's been going to my shows for like 12 years, and
So
I don't
she's
know.
kind of a tastemaker in some cases.
Definitely. And that's cool because she is an outsider. She's a lot older, and you know yeah, the first time I was like, yeah, you should probably stand back. One of the first shows she went to was a pulling teeth show.
Holy
So
shit.
yeah.
You're like, Mom, I love you.
Yeah.
Let's make sure you don't lose a tooth or something crazy.
Yeah. And all the Winnipeg kids came, and we had like chain moshing, and it was a dangerous show. Like
Yeah.
and it was amazing show. It was
Yeah.
an amazing show.
Well, shout out to Andre's mom. Um, in regard to the bands that we have crossed paths with, Failed States is obviously that group. It's been a while since I've actually seen you guys. We put you on the channel because shout out to Wyatt of Tandem Visuals. He's recorded a couple sets in Regina, but I think the last time I actually saw you guys play was in like 2016, if I'm remembering
Okay,
correctly,
yeah, yeah, in
because that was
Calgary.
at the Southern Alberta Fest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. So, you know, maybe give me the latest on what you guys are doing as a band. Obviously there's not a lot bands can do in this weird time that we're in, but what's been the latest that you guys have been doing as of
I
recent?
mean, that's a good question. I think like okay, so we don't play that often anymore. I think just because we've been around for a long time and we're kind of like on a standstill. But we did record a little EP about 2.5 years ago, and that was really fun. It's always fun to record something, especially just because it pushes you to write. And I don't know, with all the when the pandemic hit, I was like, guys, this is like prime time. This is like the themes going on in my head. I was like, oh man, we can really get into this. And then we had some crazy stuff happen with like just politically and social changes happening, all these shifts happening during the pandemic that I feel like we really want to start writing. And I think that now that maybe things, I don't know, it's just everything's unclear at the moment, so we haven't really done anything. But I did meet up with one of my bandmates and we are trying to write some riffs. You know how that goes. That can go good or bad. But I
Right.
think that we'll write more because we're really passionate about this kind of stuff. And you, I think it's just when the time hits and you can't force something out either. So
Yeah. Yeah, like it's always kind of this weird thing right now where bands are wanting to record or already had something in the works and now they're trying to figure out the timing of it, but at the same time they don't want to release something that takes away from the attention of the social conversation around, Black Lives Matter and things of that nature. So it's kind of a weird time as far as like it is a good time to put out music, but should you put out music? And it's kind of balancing that and feel and testing the waters of when is the best time to do that.
yeah, I really I do get that, but at the same time, we have, like, a lot of us have these platforms that are extremely loud, and I think that we should be using them. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like, yeah, I guess you can, some people might cash in on that, but it's not really how I see it. I think this is a really important time in history, and you should be talking, you should be saying stuff, you should be screaming it. And um I did notice a lot of bands were like a little hesitant to release their hard work that they put into, like, great records. And I I don't have a problem with that. I think that's great. And um yeah, I mean, if it's a reflection of our time that we're living in right now. So to me, it's like, yeah, we go back. If I'm listening to that 3 years from now, it takes me back to this time. And it was important to say something. So it's
Yeah.
better to, say something rather than stay quiet. So
Yeah, and I think like I've said it multiple times where there's bands who are kind of just sitting around and are in neutral. They're kind of maybe just coasting, and if they want to do that, like there's no shame in that. But there's a lot of bands who are maybe on a smaller side who are like, okay, now is a great opportunity for us to kind of try to put our name out there, try and do as much stuff as we can, whether that's through live sets, podcasts, doing collaborations with other bands. Um, and yeah, like there if there's a hesitancy of like, oh, like we don't want our album to draw away from the conversation, um that's I think that's a fair feeling, but at the same time it's like, are you using that as an excuse just to be like, oh, we just are unorganized and are lazy? So it's kind of this, you know, I'm a full believer in bands that are doing stuff and are being aware of the things that are happening. And obviously you can't just predict something of like, a band drops this and then Trump says something heinous on the radio and then it blows up. It's like, oh, didn't you know? Like, obviously, no one knew that that was gonna happen.
No, and I at the same time, regardless of what I said, I have mad respect for anyone that's actually being conscious of what's going on and they're being considerate and they're like and I feel like a lot in the past few months, people have actually taken the time, they've stopped in their tracks and they're like, is this being considerate to other people? Like, are we inclusive? Are we just saying that? In our in the scene itself, it's not like super inclusive. So even that, it's like that should be questioned all the time.
Sure.
So anytime like the stuff you're saying, like I think it's great that people are even holding back. They're like other people need a voice right now. Respect because honestly they do, and it doesn't mean you have to stop doing things, but it might mean maybe taking a different approach. Maybe you can have like rethink your lyrics a bit. It just depends on what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of
It's
different
it's not
aspects
like
to.
black and white.
Yeah, yeah. So despite maybe failed states not being the most active Canadian hardcore band, I know that you're very busy yourself with a lot of things in the mix in your life. I know that you teach, and I'm trying to remember if it's kindergarten or something early years, or am I off base
uh,
there?
I've definitely taught kindergarten at one point, but I teach grade 5, 6.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
more middle of the road as far as the
Yeah, I
K
don't
to
know if
12
I could
cycle.
do kindergarten. Yeah. I've done every grade though, for sure. Like there's pros and cons. I think I've done like I'm a high school trained teacher, but
Gotcha.
I went to elementary school and did that. And yeah, I like the age group I teach. They're great kids. It's good age because you can be real with them
Hmm.
and also just have fun and joke around and just have a good time.
Yeah. And going back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, as far as like, you know, punk has. I heard this on a documentary where it was like punk is all about like fuck the man, but then hardcore is like, okay, like I need I see what the man is doing and I want to change that for the better. So like what are the steps that I can do to either better myself or better my community, versus just like you were saying, just complaining. So
Yeah.
how, maybe this is a overarching question, but how have you taken the things that you've learned in hardcore and applied that to your everyday life in the sense of like mentoring and teaching a younger generation?
Oh wow. Okay.
Big question.
Yeah, it's big because you know what? It's definitely been something that I've always thought about and I've always made an effort to just be myself regardless of what I'm doing. And teaching's a big opportunity for you to retain who you are and use that to your advantage to teach people about so many different things. I use my cultural background all the time as a teaching stepping stone. Uh, like I can start with just being open minded and uh, giving people a chance, hearing them out. Um, it's been interesting, I think, for different groups. I've seen different reactions, and it's always been pretty positive. I think it's definitely given me a different approach to teaching. Um, in the sense that I do focus a lot on social matters and your identity and just being, having some sort of like, I don't know. I feel like every day in my classroom I have like a Bane speech or something. Like I'll stop everything. I'm like, all right, you guys, like, like,
This is the
and I'll
moment.
talk for like 20 minutes. And I sometimes I have kids that are like timing me, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. A, you've been talking for an hour." I'm like, "Okay, you guys get it? Okay, cool. Let's all right, math time."
That's hilarious. Given the hardcore speeches in the middle of math class.
That's the only way I can put it. And even last year, I did a music project, and this is where I have a lot of fun with this stuff because, like, if you go into my room, I have like a no warning like poster on my wall and stuff, and kids are like, "What is that?" I'm like, "It's good."
It's
That's what it
good.
is.
Yeah.
And yeah, like even last year, I did a project, just a music project, and like just pick an artist, the typical project research, but I always have to do an example of myself so that I can like give them a stepping stone on where to start and what you could do with it.
Right.
So needless to say, I did it on hardcore and I gave a 1 hour presentation. I was showing them videos of like turnstile and the kids were losing it. They're like, this is so cool. And shout out to Sunny for providing like some sick footage from those shows. Like this is
Straight up.
hardcore. Oh my god. And the kids are like, what are they doing? They're like, look, did you see that flip? I'm like, yeah, I did. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And I was like, at any point, do these people look like super angry? They're like, no. And you have no idea how much people can learn just from seeing stuff like that.
Straight
It's
up.
incredible. Like I use it for different things. And I even did a like I was doing like I did my master's a few years ago and for one of my classes, I did a paper and a presentation on hardcore. And so many these people were like blown away. And I treated it like a show. They had like tickets and stuff, and we sat down and I had like merch and stuff. And I gave them a crash course on hardcore and I had clips of Have Heart and just like the whole banter and people that were so against it were like, that was cool.
Yeah.
And some of the people, they're older, they're like, I used to go to punk shows in the 90s and you just spark something again in me. And at the time we were playing with SNFU like 2 weeks later, and I had some people from that class actually come to the show. I was like
Dang.
blown away
That's
by
very
it.
sick.
It's so cool.
Yeah, I think that I think anybody I would assume a lot of people listening or watching have done some kind of musical project on hardcore metal or some kind of heavier music. And I think if you know your shit, like, you're definitely gonna potentially impress or sway a couple people that might just be like, "Oh, what is this weirdo music?" There was one time in the 1 year of college that I did. I was talking about some metal core band. I was at a Christian college, so I think I was talking about For Today, and
Okay.
apparently I had the music playing a little too loud, so the class down the hall, the professor said that I was playing demon worship music. And I'm like, this is a Christian band. I don't understand what's happening. um,
Oh, that's so good. I
yeah,
love
but
that.
no, that is very, very cool to just like, have that where kids can be like, oh, like, look at all this craziness that's going on. And that's ultimately, you know, that might be the thing that gets people into the door, because that was definitely for me. I went to a show, saw people climbing on top of each other, try to grab a mic, and that's cool. But like we were saying earlier, the why and the actual like juice of hardcore kind of keeps people forever in
Yeah.
some cases.
And I think just to add on to that, I just like the fact that I mean, this is going to happen regardless of where you are, but there's far less egos like in hardcore.
Yeah.
And it's more about take the mic, like sing, like I don't know. For me, that all like I've seen bands where they get so pissed off if you even go near the mic, and it's like
Right.
I like that. In hardcore, they'll give you the mic, and you can like sing half the song if you want.
Right.
You probably shouldn't, but you know.
Yeah.
Um, and
No.
I just like that. I think it's cool. And talking to kids about like misconceptions and like I'll play like I've played Punch for my kids before, and right after I'm like, so who do you think was singing that song? And when I tell them, it's like it's a woman, which is like I don't know why that's surprising in some people, but it is. And I think like for some kids, they're like they need to see that. They're like
Yeah.
they need to see like girls especially they need to see that they're being represented in all forms of art. And I saw some like serious sparks flying, I guess. I don't know how to say it, but like some kids were like, wow, that's actually really, really cool.
Hmm.
And some kids ended up like actually listening. That's cool.
Yeah, and yeah, it goes the same. Like I've heard bands where, you're just kind of listening to it, and just naturally you're trying to envision, okay, the guy or the person in this band sings this way, and you just fill in the blanks of your head, like, oh, he's probably this age. He sings in this way, so I listen to other bands where the vocalist, looks this way, or he's this kind of build, or even like he's a white dude, but then you look at the promo picture, you're like, yo, everyone in this band is black, and that's like
Yeah,
really really cool to kind of break those mental you know, fill in the blank mind games at times because yeah, representation is super important, and especially with female or femme vocalists, a lot of them don't sound the same, and a lot of people played that like female fronted genre bullshit. But I think it's just like
yeah,
you there's so many bands where half the time it ranges so many. I know you know bands like Punch that have that kind of like that style. But then I've heard bands like there's a band from Australia called Crave Death that really like, and
yeah,
her vocals are just like this guttural, just angry, pissed off sound.
yeah,
Yeah, it's cool to see the range and to see, like you're saying, your students be like, oh, this is really sick that it's not just a boys club essentially.
yeah. And we need to do that more. Like even in my own scene, like like I don't know. I'm Latino, so that's I've always been the only one.
Right, right.
And it's I just want more of that. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not the only one, but I mean sometimes it feels like it is, and it's fine. You know, yeah. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it is something that we need to challenge a bit more and just be more inclusive and try to like encourage people to just come out and check it out and see what it's all about, because you'd be surprised. Some people, they have no idea they'd be into this
Right.
until they're actually there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the big one.
They might listen to like Slayer or Dragon Force, and you just be like, okay, come see this Power Trip band. It's pretty much in the
Yeah.
same realm of things. So to jump back into it, so you were on a Food Network show called The Wall of Chefs really recently. And kind of just popped out of nowhere because we've been keeping up with one another on social pretty actively, but you just posted like, hey, I'm on this and it's premiering. And I've worked with a number of companies with other big television networks, so I'm fully aware of the you know the longer run time of shooting something, editing it, putting it for
Right.
public release and things like that. But yeah, I would love to talk about that, as I know food is a big passion of yours. So just tell me how you got either headhunted or how you got asked and how that came into your lane, and then we'll start to break it down.
Oh, okay. So I've always wanted to be on one of these shows. Like, um, I'll watch like Chopped, and I'm like, how do I get on this? So actually, a guy from my city, he's a chef, and he was on Top Chef, and he won and stuff. So he he has like a bunch of great restaurants, like some of the best in Canada, and he posted on his Instagram. This is a great opportunity for home cooks because most shows are for professionals, so it's not just for anyone. And he's like, if you've ever wanted to do this, you should definitely, uh, apply. And I remember just screen capping it because I was at work. I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. And then maybe like 2 days later, I was like, okay, I should actually like look into that. And yeah, it was the due date. It was basically like you have to hand this in right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I dropped everything and I actually made I applied, and you have to
Mhm.
do a few things, and Yeah, yeah, that's basically how that started.
Mhm. And was that turnaround of them like reaching out to you like pretty quick, or was there like multiple months in the oh
No,
yeah,
it's
you just
pretty
sent it
quick.
off and then yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. Yeah, it was really exciting for me,
It almost
actually.
it's one of those things where it's like there's the box at the, the grocery store and it's like fill out a survey and win this, and the box always seems empty and you're like I could actually do that and win $200 worth of groceries, but sometimes it's just taking the time to do that, but that's pretty funny
It
how it
is. I
was like
mean,
down to the wire and could
exactly.
have gone a different way.
I think for me, it was like that. It was the same mentality. It's kind of like, what's the harm? Like, worst case, I won't hear from them. Like,
Yeah.
big deal. It does require some effort. You have to put things together, but everything requires effort, and that's another learning experience right there.
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
And yeah, I don't want to give away, how your episode plays out because I do, I always think it's cool to like see people in hardcore in these like huge like awareness pieces, because when they were introing you, you're like, yeah, I played in bands, and they're like showing these photos of you. I was like, oh, I don't know if they're gonna share any like scoped exposure failed states footage or anything of that nature, but I don't want to give away how the episode pans out, but yeah, I think it was really cool to see them feature someone kind of our field on there and
Yeah,
talk about it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm glad they played it up a bit because yeah, it's a big part of my identity, I think, and
sure.
and I thought it was cool. And yeah, there's actually one of the pictures they used. We were playing in Winnipeg at the
Oh,
Kennedy, so I
get
thought that
out.
was
That's sick.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, that was a good show.
Yeah. So, obviously like some of the behind the scenes have to, stay within the movie, TV movie magic kind of things. But like, what was the biggest thing going through your head while you guys were doing the taping and the overall process of that?
Well, I was so nervous, man. Yeah, leading up to it, there's a bunch of stuff you have to do, but when they said go, like, and they start filming and the timer starts going, it's real. Like, that's
Right.
some real pressure. And I had, yeah, I feel like the first few minutes, it didn't register. I was like, okay, all right, this is happening. And then you're like, okay, this is happening. And I need to put some food on these like plates. So, and I have to do that right now. And I'm here. So let's like wow some people. Like, let's actually try here. Like, I went through all the trouble of doing that. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure. And eventually it kind of like, you kind of get lost in it. And I have so much fun cooking, man. Like, um, to me, I can't really tell you what I was thinking because I was just focused. I was like, okay, let's do this. I know what I'm doing. Like,
Right.
done this my whole life, and it's not like they're whipping you or something, or, or throwing things at you, or taking away your knife or something like that. There's no sabotaging. It's like it's all in good fun, and they make it so that you do well. Like, you don't like, you have all these amazing things at your disposal. It's like,
Right.
okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
That
playing a show, actually.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I
because
was
it's
like
like
playing my first show.
just on a way larger audience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
being a freelance videographer, sometimes I have to direct people and I can tell that they're tensed up when I'm like holding the big camera in front of their face, and a lot of time I'm like, "Listen, you know what you're doing. Even if you're talking to the camera, like you know the subject matter that we're covering. It's just you need to have that mental like it doesn't matter that there's one, two, three, five giant cameras around, multiple lights and
Yeah,
blah blah blah. Just get into the groove, and same thing with playing a show, like you said. Just whatever the situation is, just like find your center point and do that for the next 15-20 minutes.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, like, I don't know if everyone knows, but the show has 12 judges in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's literally a wall of chefs. And yeah, there's a lot of cameras, and they're talking to you, and they're coming to check out what you're doing. Yeah, there's like added pressure for sure. Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun.
The whole like, wall of chefs, as you said, did you recognize like when they were introing a lot of the chefs, I'm like, I I fully believe that these people are some of the most talented chefs in the country, but for me, I'm not in that world, so I'm like, don't know that name, don't know that name. Like I can, I will say one of the only chefs that I actually know by name is Maddie Matheson, but
Yeah,
yeah,
me
but
too.
did you recognize a lot of
Shout out.
any of those people?
Yeah, yeah, I did a few, just not all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a few. There's a Calgary homie in there, Chef Darren McLean.
Mhm.
I recognized him from Netflix, and I was definitely intimidated. Lynn Crawford, she's like, I've grown up watching her shows, so yeah, I was pretty intimidated. Everyone else, I found out more about them later.
Afterwards. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, people are like, I can't believe. I was like, yeah, I can't believe that either. And you know what? I'm actually glad I didn't know, I wasn't aware of the magnitude of some of these
Right.
people, because they're actually a really big deal. And yeah, afterwards I was like, yeah, if I knew that, I would have probably not, some stuff would have happened probably. But
Yeah, living in that ignorance even for that short period of time like probably propelled you to, get into your groove probably a little bit quicker than like, oh my gosh, so and so is here, so and so is here.
yeah,
So,
oh, for sure.
um, you know, oh, I said so and so and then Siri kicked in.
Yeah.
Um, so you're mentioning, and I've seen it, prior to this whole episode going up, like you've been a big cooking is definitely one of your main lanes of things. When you go out to eat, it's crazy the amount of food that I see you ordering, but B, just like the variety of different things. I'm not trying to say you're a pig or anything. You're just like you love to when you go to eat out, you treat yourself, which I
Yeah.
I approve. So, what are some of your favorite things that you like to make? Um, and how do you influence some of the things of your family's culture into some of your dishes?
Oh, I love to cook breakfast for sure. I think people really enjoy that. I think at the end of the day, it's kind of food's like universal. You need it. You make something really good, people are gonna be happy, and I like that, man. I get a lot of pleasure out of just like making people feel good with food and stuff. And so for me, that's like one of my favorite things. I know it's not specific to like a dish. I like making pizza. I think it's so much fun because you can get really creative with that. Um, I definitely have some like crowd pleasing dishes that I'll make for friends, and they'll lose their minds, and that's like to me what's fun about it. Culturally, I grew up cooking with my dad all the time. He taught me to improvise. Uh, and the more I think about it, I'm like, man, he's so punk rock. Like it's like, all right, you have these ingredients, like do something. He told me like never follow a recipe. Like he told me to break the rules, like don't follow rules, and that carried on. And as I grew up, I'm like, man, it's so punk. Like
Yeah.
my grandma, like she's really, she kept the whole Chilean roots alive. So I grew up kind of eating like all these really traditional foods with her own spin. She's also one of those people that will go somewhere, eat something that she likes, and then she'll go home and make it, and she'll make it better. And
Right.
that's been like, those are my influences, just these people that are always like making the best of what they have and doing it really well and tweaking things and not really following something and just making your own thing. And I'm really fortunate because my partner, she has an incredible family too that just loves and appreciates food, and they'll make these incredible meals. And I'm always like, losing it while I'm eating. I'm like, oh, this is so good. And you know, I appreciate when people are like that, because you know, a lot of you goes into cooking, like a lot of like love and passion, which is like, you know, what it applies to everything I do. Like I'm a visual artist too. You need to have some love and passion in there. You can't just do it just because, you know, cooking is the same way, music, you know this, man. Like when someone doesn't mean it, it's obvious.
Yeah.
It's if they're in it for the wrong reasons, you don't even have to say anything. You
Yeah.
know right away. So it applies to everything that I do.
Yeah, yeah, having, nothing can really replace the passion like spice on whatever you're doing, whether it's like, you're making online content for the internet or you're writing music. If you don't have that, it's going to fall flat like pretty quick. So,
It is. It's
um
the ingredient, man.
yep,
Like literally, it's the
the
key to everything.
spice of life as they say.
Yeah.
Um, on the tail end of all the stuff that you did with the Food Network, is there is there anything that says like you can't go on a future episode, or is there talks of doing other stuff, or is it like I did that and that was sick, but that's probably not going to happen again. It was kind of that once in a lifetime.
I mean, I treat it like a once in a lifetime opportunity, because you really don't know, right? And I don't know, but as far as like maybe pursuing something with cooking or in any capacity, I am very fueled up right now, and I definitely want to use whatever momentum I have, just whether it's encouragement or just like just being fired up from it and doing something with it. So yeah, I'm trying to work on like an online presence and trying to like have fun with it, because at the end of the day, you do have to have fun. Again, it's very transparent. Like people know if you're doing it for the right or wrong reasons. And I just want to like do something with it, encourage other people to find their motivation for cooking and why they're doing it. And like, eating food, cooking, it's all like it's an experience. And um it's not just about eating, like you could be cooking with someone else, you can be going to a restaurant and having like a really fun time. Um it it's those things that I want people to become more aware of, and I think that's the message that I'm trying to put out there right now. And it's just about, this isn't about just cooking, it's about, you know just having fun and
Yeah.
really just finding out why you're into it.
Yeah. Um, I think I'm a firm believer with this podcast to always try and give someone a little bit of value on the hardcore side, but also the whatever my guest is like passionate outside of that. So, is there any like one main cooking thing that you can give as advice to people, whether it's like everyone is making their eggs on medium heat, but it actually should be low, or anything
Oh,
of that
okay.
nature. Is there any kind of like one go to that you always tell whoever you're trying to educate?
Yeah. Yeah. Try your food. Try it. Like, try it as much as you can. Like, obviously, wash your spoon after, COVID, but, you know, uh, try it. Like, what's it missing? Like, balance it out. Like, work on your balance. Like, you know, you can fix things really quickly if you understand flavor profiles. And um, I think that's something that a lot of people don't do. They're not trying what they're eating, and then it might not work out to the way that they were hoping it would work out. Um, I think that if you're doing that, you're aware of what's happening, and you can steer it in a direction. Obviously, sometimes you mess it up, and and it's you'll have to throw it out. But I think eh, as an easy like tip right now, it's try your food as you go and wash your dishes, man. like I wash everything as I go, and then when I'm done, it's done. And
Right.
you know what? People are like, I can't believe you do that. It's like, well, look, like we're gonna have to do dishes after anyway, so
Right.
let's minimize that. And it's being organized and like prepping your stuff. That those are tips. Like they're things that I feel you need to do,
Yeah.
like if you want to be successful.
Yeah.
But you don't have to.
Yeah, true. But no, there's a you know, there's thoughts of conversations I've had with my wife where she is very much like you. Like she'll wash stuff as she goes along, and then once it's done, the kitchen is already clean. And maybe there was an extra 10 minutes in the mix of, making
Mhm.
everything to do that. But I'm trying to steer more that direction because in the past it would just be like, I'm done with this dish on the other side. So
Hey, start where you're at and build on. Like
yeah,
you can't do everything all at once,
yeah.
right?
Has there been a time where you've cooked something kind of you're trying out a new recipe or you're trying to accomplish a certain kind of flavor and it just goes completely sideways and you're like, yeah, I have to toss this and start over.
There was definitely one a few months ago where I was like, well, my partner was like, dude, she was so upset. It's like this is the first meal that you've made where it just did not hit the mark. And I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Yeah, it's gonna happen, but whatever, it happens.
Yeah. It's
It's all
been
good.
it's
Don't
been
be
plenty of
discouraged.
times where I filmed a band and either something gets fucked up with the audio or the camera gets kicked out of my hands and sometimes you just have to work with what you got and take the L and, you know, don't expect to have this perfect record all the time. It's way better
No,
that you got to bat 100 times and hit it, 80 versus like you got to bat like 10 and then you only did like 3. So,
exactly.
yeah. Always always trying. Um so Andres, the last segment of this podcast that I always hit on is a favorite mosh story. So that could be anything that's first to your
Yes.
mind, whether it's something that happened to you or something you saw at an old Regina show.
Okay.
That's how we kind of end things here.
All right. My favorite mosh story. It was at 2005. Comeback Kid came to Regina, and they played at the exhibition. So I don't know. Like I know you have listeners from all over the world. So it's basically like the fair. Okay, the
Yeah.
summer fair, and it's full of normies. It's just full of like normal people. Like no one had any idea this was gonna happen. So Comeback Kid played because Alexis on Fire was on the bill. Okay, and this is like
Okay.
a free show for anyone. You just have to pay like the admission to the fair. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
so prior to the show, it was all over our message board, Queen City Punk and hardcore. And yeah, and it was at the height of like hardcore in Regina, I'd say. And honestly, like people had like lawn chairs set up, like watching the band. And we're like, I don't know what you think this is, but this is gonna be chaos. And yeah, there were hundreds of kids. Like our scene was actually big at one point. And okay, so when the band comes on and they're like playing like they'll play like open notes and they're like, all right, everyone,
Yeah. Yeah.
just pumping
Side to
everyone up.
fucking side. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, side to side. All right, well, I was standing there and it was side to side, and I got like I just got like mauled. Like someone did the spin kick right into me, and pop goes my knee. Like immediate, like first note, this
Oh.
first song didn't even start. Knee dislocated, and I'm like on the floor, like excruciating pain. I'm like, cool. And at the same time, also, I was like, cool,
Yeah.
that's awesome. But low key, not cool.
Yeah.
This sucks. I can't even enjoy this. And I was so angry and like it really worked. And it was also like it was in the worst place you could ever have a hardcore show because it was all like gravel.
Oh
So
yeah.
everyone's moshing like I'm talking like 50 people are moshing like hard.
Yeah.
Like I don't see that anymore. And it was like hard. and just a
Picking up
cloud
change
of dust.
actually involved picking up dirt and rocks and throwing it
Yes,
everywhere.
absolutely. And circle pits, and yeah, it was the works. And I just remember like looking at people in the back, like they were like grandmas and stuff, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, this is the first time and probably the last time a lot of people are ever gonna see something like this. I loved it. I love that we were like terrorizing the whole city,
Yeah,
and
someone's
everyone.
on the Ferris wheel and they're like, "Why? What's this big fight breaking out?"
And I think it's because of where the show was being held that everyone went off. Like, that was like, okay, we need to like go
Yeah,
20 times harder. And that's what happened. And that's why my knee dislocated. And
yeah.
yeah, it was great. That's one of my favorite Regina hardcore moments. Beautiful. It was beautiful.
Well, I've been wanting to have Jeremy of Comeback Kid come on the show for a while now. So
Yes,
if and when that does happen, I will ask him about that
please. That'd be
exhibition
great.
show.
2005.
I was hoping that the lawn chairs were gonna make an appearance of some kind when you mentioned it, but you know,
I wouldn't have been surprised,
yeah.
but
No, as soon as you were mentioning the people in the back that were just like what's going on, like that brought me back to when I was in Vancouver for the DBK 5 year, and
oh yeah.
Integrity was playing. They had passed the set and they were doing some disco night at the same venue immediately after this huge hardcore festival,
Oh my
and just
god.
people were waiting to hit the disco dance floor with their dates, and people just like screaming into microphones and guitar solos and people bashing each other in the face. And I'm like, man, what a weird date night for a lot of people.
Integrity of all those bands, like
Straight up.
so hard.
Well, Andres, this has been a blast. You've been a big supporter of Scoped since the get, and I've loved this chat. Is there anywhere that you want to send people after this podcast? Definitely, I'd recommend if any friends of yours that haven't seen the Food Network show, definitely go check that out. Anything else that you want to plug here before we wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, shout out to Queen City Hardcore, my homies in Stepping Stone, just killing it. I
Yeah.
love them. Uh, shout out to Spencer's band right here, Endgame, so good. Like,
Thank you,
easily, I have not stopped listening to that at all. It's so good.
dude. Thank you.
Um, uh, I have a Instagram page for my food, so if you want to check it out, it's underscore food underscore by underscore Dre underscore. So I don't know, maybe we can like pop that up somewhere.
It'll be at the beginning of the episode, so it'll be in
Awesome.
the show notes, descriptions, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
dude,
that's
this
good.
has been a blast. I hope that we get to do it again soon, and maybe you can we'll be in the kitchen. You can show me a thing or two. That would be sick.
That would be amazing. I'm so down.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan, and I hope that everyone here that's listening just check out the great Canadian bands that we've got. Spencer's done a great job of documenting all of this, and that I feel we owe a lot to you. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
I appreciate the kind words, and yeah, if there's even if there's two or three people that have come here from the Food Network and are gonna go check out Serration or any other band, I think that's a win for Western Canada hardcore.
Absolutely.